They spent 40 years building a family that would one day decide they were no longer worth keeping. Not because they were cruel or absent or careless parents, but because they became old, weak, and inconvenient. This is the true story of how an American couple gave everything to their children, lost it all, and were quietly removed from their own lives without protest or headlines. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. What makes this story difficult to hear isn't what happened at the end, but how patiently it unfolded. Because long before they were abandoned, before the doors were closed and calls went unanswered, Daniel and Margaret believed they had done everything right. They worked, they sacrificed, they stayed together when leaving would have been easier, and they raised children who grew up believing stability was guaranteed, without realizing who was paying the cost for it. Daniel spent most of his life working night shifts in manufacturing plants across the Midwest, his hands stiff from years of repetition, his hearing slowly dulled by machines that never slept. Margaret worked wherever she could, cleaning offices, sewing garments, caring for others while quietly ignoring her own health. They raised 4 children in a modest home, not wealthy but dependable. The kind of house where birthdays were small but consistent and promises were rarely broken. When the kids needed tuition help, Daniel took extra shifts. When someone lost a job or made a mistake, Margaret quietly sent money they didn't really have. Retirement was discussed but never planned for seriously, because there was always something more urgent. As the years passed, Margaret's breathing worsened and Daniel's strength faded, and the children, now adults with lives of their own, began to see their parents less as protectors and more as problems to be solved. Conversations changed tone, visits shortened, decisions were made without them, and eventually, under the careful language of concern and responsibility, Daniel and Margaret were told they needed to leave the home they had built because it was time for something more practical. They were relocated to an old property. Daniel's grandfather once mentioned but never spoke much about. A remote cabin tied to an old land document no one in the family had ever cared to investigate. It was framed as temporary, a solution, a place to figure things out, but the silence that followed made the truth clear. No follow-up calls came, no offers to help arrived. Winter closed in, supplies ran thin, and Margaret's condition worsened. What kept them alive in those first weeks wasn't hope, but habit, waking up, enduring, refusing to admit what had been done to them. And then, while clearing snow near the foundation, Daniel uncovered something his grandfather had hidden decades earlier. A sealed underground storage space stocked with preserved food, tools, and documents that revealed the land's forgotten value. That discovery didn't just keep them alive, it gave them leverage, independence, and time. The children eventually returned, not out of concern, but curiosity, only to find the story had changed without them. Daniel and Margaret didn't confront anyone. They didn't need to. Because sometimes the quiet survival of those written off too early becomes the most uncomfortable truth of all.